Primarily, we wanted to support the grassroots immigrant rights movement. And in particular, bring any capacity and skills that we could to build for this National Day of Noncompliance. To spread the word far and wide throughout local and national networks about what's happening in Arizona and lift up some of those stories and experiences that will help mobilize people to take action and feel committed to fighting against propositions like SB 1070 and 287G. To continue to build with some of our key allies, including folks at Ruckus, including people with the national campaign Building US for All of Us, with the Unitarian Universalists and their campaign, which is called Standing on the Side of Love. And also to continue learning and growing as anti-racist organizers and to bring any lessons that we gained back to our communities and back to all of the work that we do at Catalyst. So what that looked like on the ground is, there was just hundreds and hundreds of people around the state doing really incredible work in the face of SB 1070, and in particular Puente and the National Day Labor Organizing Network, or NDLON, we're putting a lot of resources into building up community power. And a lot of that happened too through the barrio committees, which you just talked about. And then as far as what Catalyst was trying to bring to that is supporting a core of white anti-racist organizers who were based in Phoenix and who had come through the 2009 Braden anti-racist training program. So folks like Leah Joe, who has been down there for 6 months, living in Arizona and working in Puente, was holding major pieces of orienting out-of-town volunteers and new in-town volunteers to the work, and coordinating a whole bunch of logistics, everything from trying to secure thousands of bottles of water in a very hot environment to finding in-town housing for dozens of out-of-town volunteers. Bo, who is working with NDLON and Puente organizers to move forward pieces of the direct action campaign, which you'll hear about in a minute. And Z, who is with Groundwork and Building US for All of Us, who played a big role in developing a team of lawyers to help with legal support for the direct actions that took place. And that's just a few of the folks that we were really fortunate to organize with and support. So in addition to supporting folks that were working within Puente, we all worked to kind of connect out into white communities as well, and with Unitarian Universalists in particular, which you'll also hear more about in a minute, to get more white folks involved in the movement for immigrant rights in general, and in particular to bring white folks in who were willing to put our bodies on the line to stand on the side of justice and take direct action in protest of the law SB 1070. And also with the hopes that through taking that action together in the streets, that people would help to spread the word through their networks nationally, and we have seen a lot of that happening since the actions on July 29th. And that also people would be moved to mobilize resources into the struggle and into the fight. So, there was a variety of things that took place. We were doing door knocking outreach in communities, facilitating nonviolent direct action trainings in Phoenix and in Tucson, doing a lot of one-on-one support with organizers, making banners, getting materials, making signs, all of the nitty-gritty things that go into creating a large and successful, day of action. And as far as key lessons, there was two major things that stood out to me that I felt really inspired by in the work that I saw in Arizona. If you could get that flip chart. They are. Slow down. So one was around multi-generational movement spaces, with the idea that people of all ages have meaningful contribution to make to movement work, and creating multi-generational spaces helps to grow our organizations, our movements, and to support women's leadership. So in the clips that you saw earlier, there was a lot of images of young people on the microphone and speaking about how SB 1070 impacted them and their families. The very first event that we went to in Arizona was a rally that was organized by young people against SB 1070. It was at the state capitol, and there was young people with a range of ages from like strollers to teenagers, everybody in between, and their families. Young people were marching around the state capitol with beautiful signs looking like butterfly wings with a message that said, "Migration is in our blood." And when young people took the microphone at the rallies, they talked about how they were fearful each day that when their parents dropped them off at school, fearful that their parents might not be there to pick them up because they might be detained or deported by sheriffs. Young people talked about suffering from nightmares about their families being torn apart by raids. Another young woman talked about how her home was raided by sheriffs who came into their house with ski masks and guns, and how she had panic attacks whenever she saw sheriffs in the community. And so these youth have really like powerful stories to share with people, and a number of them actually got to testify before Congress about the impact of SB 1070 on their lives and their families. And in this space as well, there was a ton of mothers present, families present, and these kind of family-centered spaces I saw like happening through like the organizing at Puente really helped to grow the organizing and to make it more accessible to folks, bring more people into the struggle. And there was also an example I just wanted to give with the multi-generational spaces and door-to-door outreach. So I had the opportunity to go door-to-door with Puente, and I was actually sent out in a team with another person who was in her mid-20s, a 10-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 1-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And it was the awesomest like outreach team I had ever been a part of. Not only did we all kind of like develop relationships with each other, as organizers of all ages, going through this experience of going to businesses and community houses together, talking about why we were against SB 1070. But I really saw people value the idea that young people are the next generation of leaders, and they deserve to have access to organizing spaces where they can learn about organizing from their families and from their communities who are really up in the struggle. And I saw it also have an impact on organizers, really reminding us why we do this work, And also on a practical tip, I think it gained us audience and a quality of conversation with business owners and folks whose houses we showed up to that we might not have had otherwise. People definitely welcomed us into spaces, and even some of the more racist business owners definitely took pause in their day to talk to us when we came through. So I'm almost out of time. But I did want to talk a little bit about multiracial alliances as well, and there's some really powerful work happening, and I wanted to lift up an example in Tucson, because a lot of times we focus on Phoenix when we talk about the struggle against SB 1070, and there's some powerful work happening in Tucson as well, and throughout the state. And I wanted to share a quote from Ai-jen Poo, an organizer with the Domestic Workers United. And this came from a speech that she gave at the GIFT conference last month. And she said that there's a role for everyone in the movement, and we must build. Everyone who is touched by the issue has space to join and take a lead in reaching out to others in their circles.